Hi, and welcome again to ICS Arabia. Today we'll dig into journalism that is related to cybersecurity. I feel lucky to have a special guest, Eduard Kovacs or Eduard Kovacs, right? Uh,
Right.
Nice to have you, Edward.
Thank you
Hi.
for inviting me.
Sure, sure, man. Um, so maybe you're wondering why I'm interviewing a journalist or a reporter, but I think this is important because, like I said before, we look at cybersecurity or OT cybersecurity from different angles and perspectives. And journalism, they play a crucial role, as we will see now. So, Edward, can you tell us about yourself and why you joined or your journey in cybersecurity journalism? Can you tell us briefly about it, please?
Okay.
Sure.
My journey in journalism and journalism in general started in 2010, I think. I started writing about technology in general, laptops, phones, software. And then in 2011, I went to interview at Softpedia. And they asked me, would you like to become a Microsoft journalist or a cybersecurity journalist? At the time, I didn't know a lot about cybersecurity, but as before I decided, I started reading up on the subject and realized, hey, this is really interesting. There were stories about hackers leaking data and big companies getting hacked, and I thought, hey, this is more interesting than writing about Windows all day. So let me try the cybersecurity journalism. So that's how I started. And now, after a few years, I joined Security Week. I've now been with Security Week for more than 10 years. So I've been doing this for more than 10 years now.
Wow. How do you find it? Do you like it? Uh, I'm sure. I'm sure you
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it
of
because it's
course.
been 10 years.
Otherwise, I would have changed fields. But yeah, I
Yeah.
really like it. It never gets boring. There's always something interesting to write about or talk about with people. So it's a very
Yeah. I
interesting.
mean, I think everybody maybe in cybersecurity knows you because your face, your name, your articles, you're a very active guy. Uh,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, sure.
I've written 10,000 articles, or maybe even more. So in my
Wow.
entire career. So even by mistake, maybe you've stumbled upon one of my articles at some point.
Okay. Uh, so let's see. Uh, Did you have to learn anything to start to cover cybersecurity or news about hackers? Did you need to have a special skill, or or you just learn as you
Yeah,
go?
yeah. Well, I've always been passionate about computers, so that was one part. And I actually started my career as a teacher,
Okay.
a computer science teacher,
Okay.
before going into writing.
Mhm.
So I've always been passionate about computers and technology. And in terms of the OT part, I actually have a bachelor's degree in industrial computer science and a master's degree in computer science applied in electrical engineering.
Oh, that's very
So
related.
I've never worked in the industrial sector,
Mm.
but in college we programmed HMIs and PLC, so I do have some knowledge about. Of course, at that point when I was in college 20 years ago, no one was talking about securing ICS. So it
Wow.
was just make it work, right? That was the goal. Make it work. There was
Yeah.
not even passwords on projects, or it was just make it work,
Yeah.
program it and make it work. So when I joined Security Week, and as you might know, Security Week is the organizer of the ICS Cybersecurity Conference.
Yep.
So when I joined Security Week and started attending the conference, I realized that there's an entire field dedicated to securing ICS, and I thought it
Mm.
was very interesting, especially combined with my background, what I did in college. I thought, hey, this is very interesting. So That's when I started really becoming passionate about writing
Wow,
ICS security stories.
nice. So you created the ICS or OT cybersecurity section in the Security Week. Did you create this?
Yeah, it was created
What
after
was
I
created?
joined, but yeah, I
Oh, all
joined
right.
the company very early on,
Hmm.
so I've been a part of that journey.
So you are in the OT security um, team or journalist. You are part of them.
Yeah. I'm the most passionate about the
Oh,
subject, so I cover most of the OT cybersecurity stories.
yeah. You also cover other aspects of cybersecurity. I can see sometimes.
Yes. I write about
Uh,
everything, anything and everything.
So you must be now expert because you've covered many topics and
I'm not sure if I'm an expert, but I
but
always like to
I'm
say
saying
that I'm good at faking it. I can fake being an expert, so I can trick you into believing that I'm an expert.
yeah, what I mean by expert that you are knowledgeable, you have general, at least
Yeah.
general knowledge of everything, or what's
Yes, of
going
course.
on.
Yeah. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, maybe you can also see where the market is going sometimes because of what you or
Yeah.
see what the field how it's going on, what's going on.
Yeah. That's a very interesting. Actually, I
Yeah.
have noticed when I started 10 years ago, I went to a general cybersecurity conference, and there was only one speaker who was talking about OT cybersecurity. So only one. So that was the time when I started writing about ICS security. I immediately knew I had to interview him. He
Mm.
was actually from the Middle East. He was a renowned IT security expert in the area. And at one point, government calls him in. It was after Stuxnet, so companies and governments were starting to get serious about securing industrial systems. And one government owned a company in critical infrastructure sector calls him in to secure industrial control systems. He was an IT expert. He didn't know anything about OT. So he just goes in and he's thinking like, I can apply my IT knowledge to secure this OT network. So he starts scanning the network and everything starts crashing. Industrial process, the plant comes to a
Oh,
halt, everyone's panicking. He was running aggressive scans to see which ports are open. So,
man.
and in contrast, now, if you go to our ICS cybersecurity conference, you see all these vendors who have dedicated products who can help you secure industrial networks without being too concerned about crashing critical processes.
So what's
So
happened to the expert? What's happened to him? Did they
in the meantime, he specialized, he learned about OT
they,
security and never ran aggressive scans on networks.
they didn't sue him or kick him out?
No, but he was in big trouble.
Okay, okay. That's
So
a
now
nice story.
we've come a long way since then. So we have all these companies who really know.
Yeah.
Of course, on the other hand, we also have a lot of companies that are still concerned about touching systems that work,
Mm.
especially legacy systems. Maybe they're kind of not sure whether they should secure them with software or hardware solutions or just leave them air gapped and hope that they never get hacked.
So you just saw, sorry, you just said that we come a long way since OT cybersecurity started to get attention and to mature. What did you see during all your journey, your 10 years of experience? What did you see OT since you started and until now from
Well,
your
it has definitely come a long way. So now we have from a journalist perspective,
yeah.
10 years ago, I would have covered any story about ICS or OT security because we had so few stories on the topic. Now there are more and more ICS security companies, more and more products, more and more research reports. Now we don't have the bandwidth to cover everything. So we've come from a point where we were hungry for even anything related to ICS security. And now we're at a point where there are so many great companies with so many great products and solutions and good research that it's difficult to cover everything. It's now a matter of choosing which is the best.
Yeah, I get it. I can understand. So what do you think the role of journalism? What's in cybersecurity and OT cybersecurity specifically? Is it important? Do you think it plays a crucial role from your point of view?
Yeah, so the main role I think is keeping people informed. That's I think the main role is keeping people informed and raising awareness. And on this side, maybe since you read my articles about ICS security, maybe you notice that I often write about ICS vulnerabilities and highlight a worst case scenario.
Yeah.
And many of these vulnerabilities may never actually be exploited, and the worst case scenario may sound exaggerated. But I believe that this is the best way to raise awareness about potential risks. So let me give you an example. So if a cybersecurity professional working in the industrial sector needs additional financing for security solutions, they can go to a non-technical executive and ask for more money to fix buffer overflows because they can lead to remote code execution. You can tell what does that mean to a non-technical person to fix buffer overflows. Or you can show them an article that says, hey, look, this is how hackers could shut down our industrial processes by exploiting these vulnerabilities. So often you need to reach out to a less technical audience. And in many cases, that's how you actually raise awareness rather than just saying some stuff to security professionals that they already know.
Exactly. So it connects the technical and the non-technical people, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
in a language that both can understand. And
exactly.
nice. I see in your Twitter you say I cover ICS security in the bio, in your bio, in your Twitter account. Why are you using this sentence? I mean, why you? Just a question.
Yeah. It's just
Just like that, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's something that I feel is important. So. Especially for me, highlighting, I cover a wide range of cybersecurity topics, and I like to highlight that.
You highlighting this?
Yes, that ICS security is my passion. Cybersecurity in general, writing about cybersecurity in general is my passion, but ICS security even more so.
Wow, nice.
I often, when I write about ICS security, it takes me back to college years when we were in a factory surrounded by SCADA systems and controllers, and it just takes me back, and I remember those fun times.
Yeah.
And often I see that my writing makes a difference in the ICS security sector, so that makes me happy. So that drives me to continue this work.
So, did you start writing straight away when you became journalist for the first time, or did you take some courses, or were you gifted, good about writing? What made you
Uh,
become a journalist or writer? Is it the teaching, being a teacher, or
yeah, I've never taken any journalism classes, but at one point during high school, I think I realized that I enjoy writing.
okay?
For a long time, I didn't express myself too well verbally. So, but I noticed that I can express myself better in writing. So that, and from that to journalism, it's just a small leap. But the computer, the computer science part. I was always passionate about that and about technology. So if you understand the technical aspects of something, then it's not
Yeah,
difficult to write about.
you know what
And
we talking about here.
the part about like podcasts and stuff like this, this is only more recent. So it took me like 10 years to get the courage to speak to someone. I've been invited to podcasts a lot and conferences in the past, but I always thought I was never good enough. So only in recent years I started to gain the confidence after speaking more in English, because it's
Mm.
one thing to write and it's a totally different thing to
Different
speak.
skill. Yeah,
Yeah, yes, exactly. So
me too. Because I'm not. It's not my language too. So I know
yeah.
what you're saying. Uh, um, what about? Yeah, let me ask you something. Now the AI came out. Do you think journalists, or maybe you, I'm not, you don't have to answer, but do you think AI will help you because you're a writer, you write or you
Yes.
search about information? Do you use AI? Do you think it's good for journalists? When to use it? When no? So tell us, please.
Yeah, so I was recently invited to a podcast specifically on this topic, AI and journalism. So I know a few things about that. So right now, AI is a tool for journalists and news companies in general, but there is that concern that, at least in my mind and in the mind of many journalists, there is that concern that at one point we may get replaced by AI. The things we do. Right now, AI is not very reliable, so I personally use it sometimes uh, for inspiration with headlines. I I have a story and I don't know what headline to pick for it, and I tell a chatbot to write me a headline for this and this. But it has never produced the perfect headline. So it has given me some ideas, but it's never the perfect headline. And in terms of, I've made some tests trying to write simple articles with AI, but in many cases it makes mistakes. So you cannot trust it to, you would always have to check it. And
Mm.
that's the hardest part of journalism, doing the fact checking and not the writing part. I can write hundreds of words in a few minutes, so that's not the problem. The problem is actually doing the research and
Yeah.
getting ideas from multiple places and condensing them into an article.
Okay.
So I don't know. I
So
don't know where it will lead us, but this is where we're currently at. So
yeah. So okay. You just said fact checking. How do you check facts as part of your job? You get a lot of cybersecurity hacking news about OT cybersecurity. I'm sure there are so many resources. I'm not gonna ask you what are your resources, but it's up to you. But how do you check your facts?
well, it's often if we are approached by a reputable or trusted company or researcher, we'll just take their word for it in most cases. So if you do investigative journalism where you spend weeks on a single story, then you can do proper fact checking and due diligence. But the type of journalism that we do, we just trust what they say and hope they're not making things up. Obviously, that's why we don't cover everything that comes our way. So if you get something from a reputable company in the ICS security space, since we're on this topic, then they have a bunch of experts. We are likely to trust them. Of course, with experience, after you gain some experience, you come to realize, or better yet, you immediately notice when something is off. So you can ask for clarifications or even question claims. We often have to question claims. But it's mostly trusting, the trust. It's mostly based on trust.
Yeah. Do do you have to come up with articles or stories every day or every week, or how much?
Yeah, so in general, now that there are thousands of cybersecurity companies,
Yeah.
we get so many stories. So it's not a problem about finding the stories, it's keeping up with everything. Because Security Week covers a wide range of stories and not only breaking news, but we also write features and we do the conferences. So it's always trying to find a wide range of information.
Let's see.
So it's not a problem. A few years ago, I was getting, when I started actually, when I started my career in cybersecurity journalism, I would get 10 emails per day, and each of those emails would turn into a story. So
Oh,
it was at a different company. We had to write more, but each of those 10 stories were relevant. There were relatively small number of cybersecurity companies. And now we're at a point where I get 200 emails per day, and I write about two of two of two stories based on those emails. So that's where it's not a problem about. It's not a problem of getting stories. It's getting the right stories.
ah, so sometimes you get a lot of stories, but you choose which one
Yes, yes.
based on. I mean, you have some.
Based on how important I think it is, and
Uh,
it needs to be good for our audience because we don't write for the general audience. We write for
mm,
executives and cybersecurity professionals.
mm.
So we don't write for grandmothers who are surfing Facebook. So my articles don't need to be understood by a very wide audience. So I write for professionals. That's why I often don't explain everything in articles because the people I write for, they
Mm.
understand. They know what a remote code execution vulnerability is
Yeah.
in that section of the article. And there's another section about real world impact, which can be good for non-technical executives, but still it's for people
Mm.
in certain fields.
I see. So, how old is Security Week now? More
I'm
than
not
10 years?
sure exactly, but I think 17 years.
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah. And I joined 11 years ago. It's almost 11 years now.
Uh, did you choose to go there, or they call you out, or
Yeah, they reached out to
they,
me
they,
seeing I was writing at Softpedia, and
yeah.
they reached out and offered to work together. And I saw it as a company that would have a bright future in this space. It was relatively small at the time because
Mm.
it was just getting started, but
Cool.
I saw that it had the potential. So
Cool. So, what is the goal of Security Week, and how does it stand out from other cybersecurity magazines or publications?
so as I said, we provide information to cybersecurity professionals and decision makers, not only through the news website, but also through in-person and virtual conferences. We have virtual conferences on a wide range of topics: AI, risk management, application security. We also have the CISO Forum, which is an exclusive in-person event that takes place in California, mainly for CISOs. And we also have the ICS Cybersecurity Conference that I mentioned, which takes place every year in October in Atlanta.
Yeah,
Which the ICS Cybersecurity Conference is the longest
yeah.
running and the biggest conference of this type.
I noticed it was popular. Yeah.
And I think we stand out because we provide quality content and we cover a wide range of topics. So in my mind, I think if you have a time in a day to read the articles on only one website,
Okay.
would you pick our website? So that's my goal and our goal. So
All right.
to offer so many resources that if you don't have time for other websites, you get everything you need from us, including the breaking news, including analysis of hot topics, and other resources like what products you should use, including in ICS security, because a lot of vendors advertise with us and they come to our conferences to advertise their products.
So, as a manager yourself, a managing editor,
Yes.
how do you know, or how do you choose or how do you tell if a journalist is good or not? If you want to employ one now, how do you? What's the benchmark, or what's the checklist if you are now recruiting somebody as a manager yourself?
I don't recruit, but if I were to recruit
Yeah.
people, then I would. I personally am very interested in accuracy.
Mm.
So the accuracy is very important because the writing part is also important. But with all these tools today, the writing itself can be good. You can write an article that doesn't have typos and the grammar is okay, but accuracy. And after such a long time, you kind of know if someone is accurate in their writing or not. Even if it's a topic I don't know, sometimes there are things that jump out that indicate that something may not be accurate.
So, what do you mean by accuracy? Is like
Technical accuracy. Well, yes,
technical accuracy?
facts. Yeah, it needs to be technically accurate, and it must
Uh,
correctly convey the information.
mm,
Because sometimes even reversing two words can give a sentence a different meaning.
I see.
Or even things like that. It's like a company can release 6 patches for vulnerabilities, or they can patch 6 vulnerabilities. It's not the same thing. So it can be small things like this.
But doesn't this require the journalist to be or to have some technical background? Does he need to? If you want to write
It depends. It depends on the story. So the
Mm,
cybersecurity industry is so big right now. There are so many aspects. The technical part about vulnerabilities and research, that's just one part of it. But there's all this the fundings, the mergers and acquisitions. So there's a whole part with. So not all stories have to be technical. Of course, it's good to know the and understand the technical part, because I see a lot of journalists, as I was saying before, you you can tell by their writing in the ICS space. I mean, you
mm.
can tell by their writing that they've never actually seen a controller or an ICS device. They figured out what it is, but they don't actually know. So they have an abstract, it's an abstract concept in their mind. They know how to write about it, but sometimes you can tell that they don't actually know.
Yeah, and they fall. and they fall into the accuracy
Yes.
mistake or accuracy.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a big, maybe it's not a big mistake. It's a minor thing that shows they may not actually know what they're talking about. They're just copying something or
So for Security Week, they always check, or you maybe as a manager, you check after your journalist for the accuracy, right? You do that,
yes,
or yeah.
yes. But of course, we can all make mistakes. You're human after all, so it's I've made some very big mistakes in my career, but the goal is to always keep communication channels open so you can receive feedback from the
Oh,
readers or from vendors. So we all make mistakes as long as you fix them.
yeah.
I think it's not such a big problem. It's impossible to be 100% accurate all the time. So we can try to keep our professional and personal lives separate,
Mm.
but at some point you're going to have some personal issues that, and you're not going to have a great day, or you're going to make a mistake. It's and the more you work, the more you write, the more mistakes you can make, obviously. But the point is to keep communication channels open and take into account the feedback you receive.
So describe Edward's day, normal day, working day. So you wake up in the morning and you just straight to writing, or what do you do
Yes,
normally?
I've been working from home for many years, for 12 years now, I think.
Wow.
And so yeah, I've been working from home before it was cool, before way before the pandemic. So the pandemic didn't affect me at all. So
Uh,
yeah, so I get up in the morning and go straight to it. So journalism is it's not something you can really. It's difficult to disconnect completely. So
mm.
you always have to keep an eye on emails. You never know when that big story is gonna come in. So and you don't want to miss it. We
Mm.
always want to be first or among the first. Of course, you can't rush too much because then the accuracy issue pops up again if there's a major story and you rush to get it out as fast as possible, then you're not going to have all the facts and it's more likely that it's going to be inaccurate.
So do you work like 5 hours a day, 8 hours,
It,
24
it
hours a day?
depends a lot. It
It
depends
depends,
a
huh?
lot. Yeah. So
Sometimes at
if
night.
yes, yes, it depends. For instance, if since we mainly cater to the United States, or we collaborate mostly with the United States and North America. If there's a big holiday in the United States, for instance, then I'm probably not going to get any emails that day. So those are the days where we don't really have much to write about. We might even take the day off. And then there are some days when I start working at 6 a.m. and finish at 10 p.m. So it's there are some very long days, and Patch Tuesdays, for instance,
Mm.
are very long days.
Okay. Yeah, Patch Tuesday. Uh, what I mean, why they call it Patch Tuesday? I mean, because it comes on Tuesday, or
Yes, yes, it's the second Tuesday of every month, so that's why
yeah.
they call it Patch Tuesday.
Who named it? Siemens? No, not sure.
I think Microsoft. I think it
Microsoft.
was
Oh,
Microsoft.
Microsoft. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about the OT one.
Oh, the OT one.
There is
That
an
was
OT one.
me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I confused
Yeah,
because
yeah. I noticed
something
that.
OT.
I noticed that ICS vendors also started releasing advisories on Patch Tuesday.
Yeah,
So I decided I came up with the name ICS Patch Tuesday.
yeah. The OT one.
Yes, yes.
So it was your idea.
I think so. I haven't seen it, so I thought about it. I haven't copied it from anywhere.
And you put it in the magazine every.
Yes.
If
Every Patch Tuesday, every second Tuesday of every month.
you'll put news about OT patches and
Yes, yes.
vulnerabilities.
Yeah, Siemens and Schneider Electric, they always have advisories,
Mm.
and some of the other vendors too, but they're not always. Siemens and Schneider, they always publish advisories, unless they don't have any patches, which is very rare.
Do you contact them or they contact you, Siemens and
No, I just check their websites for
oh,
the
you check their
advisories
website?
on that day. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if we need clarifications, especially with Siemens, they have
Mm.
a very good security team,
Mm.
and we've been collaborating with them on some issues, and they're really good. So uh, that's why they publish the highest number of advisories, as you may have seen. Siemens always has
Yeah.
at least a dozen advisories and sometimes over 100 vulnerabilities.
Mm.
That doesn't mean their products are the least secure. They invest more in security than others.
Mm.
That's why they find more vulnerabilities.
Mm.
When you're a big company like that and you use dozens of third party components, it's impossible not to have vulnerabilities when you have
Oh,
so many products, so many million lines of code. But the fact that you fix them at a fairly rapid pace, and
mm.
that that means they're a good company, not that they're more vulnerable than others.
Yeah, they have the resources and the team.
Yes,
Otherwise, who will fix them?
yes.
So, from your experience now, you cover OT and IT secure cybersecurity. So far, what do you think? What are your observations now from 10 years of experience? I'm sure OT has changed and evolved. Do you find similarities, differences between OT cybersecurity in general, so news, market trends, whatever?
Well, I don't know, because if you cover it constantly and you're in the middle of it,
Uh,
you don't always see the trend. So if you're in the middle of it and you progress alongside with it, I don't see that many, other than what I mentioned, with more products being available, companies being better. So
hmm,
that's what I've noticed.
okay. So, do journalists or maybe yourself or your team do threat intelligence? And is journalism a type of threat intelligence, or you
We
agree?
it's some I think threat intelligence is journalism complements threat intelligence. I think
Yeah.
that's the best way to put it. So we often, in most cases, we rely on specialized companies and researchers for threat intelligence. So sometimes we might go on a hacking forum,
Mm.
but if you're not the type of journalist that spends weeks on a single story, then it's just not efficient to monitor the forums all day, because you can get other better stories elsewhere. There's a lot of noise on hacking forums, so
Yeah.
you can spend hours or days and you might come up with nothing. On the other hand, threat intelligence companies, this is what they do. They monitor the forums. We have a relationship with these threat intelligence companies, and
Mm.
when they find something interesting, they let us know about it. Or if we need clarifications or additional information on a certain topic, we can reach out to these companies. And
Mm. So sometimes, open source intelligence also use articles from your magazines. And
yes,
uh, do you use open source intelligence as a technique? Does as a journalist, do you use open source intelligence techniques or yourself?
yes, I do. I do
Yeah.
sometimes, but it's not such a big part of for me personally. So I do look for it. There are some big stories that where you need to gather information from a lot of sources. It's not just rewriting an advisory. There are some stories where I have 30 tabs open in my browser and trying to piece things together. So there are some stories that
Heavy.
definitely involve some OSINT, but it's not every day.
Okay. So are there any issues from doing journalism that a journalist should be aware of, like ethical, legal boundaries? Have you faced any issues with those?
Yeah, I haven't personally. I've been threatened with lawsuits, of course, but none of them have materialized. Of course, if the topic is very sensitive or
Yeah,
there's a high chance of it being inaccurate, we might stay away from it.
yeah,
So
that's the one.
someone approaches us with a story that it's difficult to verify and it makes some bold claims, then we might just.
Especially,
And
it could be become political. Like if you
yes,
talk about a country, for example, that an incident happened to it, and this country become angry because of why you,
yes.
yeah,
I can probably never go to China or Russia. I could never visit them probably.
because
I don't think I would get out of there.
because you wrote too much about them, right?
Yes, yes. Even if it wasn't the political part, so we focus on the technical aspects, the malware and the threats, but I don't think they would welcome me.
Uh, so what I see is there is a price you have to pay as a journalist sometimes,
Yes, yes,
such as this, for example, you cannot visit certain countries because
yes. I'm not
you do.
sure that they have me on their radar, but the risk is kind of high.
There is a
So,
risk. Yeah. Uh-huh. When you started cybersecurity journalism, did you have some mentors? Did you have some people that you looked up to that you want to be like them, or was it just you?
yeah, I've taken information and resources from multiple sources. So I've tried to build my own thing, my own style.
Mm.
So I tried not to copy one particular person or one, and I didn't have a mentor. So because and
Mm.
especially since I don't have any formal training in journalism,
Oh.
I just kind of picked it up on the way.
So if you hire a journalist now, new one, do you prefer a guy or a girl with a journalism degree, or it doesn't matter?
No, it doesn't
Doesn't
matter.
matter.
So because if I don't have a journalism degree, so but I did notice that
Yeah.
people with journalism degrees do have they're sometimes better than me, to put it simply. So I notice in their style of writing that
Mm.
they do, which some things I try to learn from them. So
Mm.
they do have something that us technical guys don't have. And
I see.
of course, we technical guys have something that journalists with journalism training maybe don't have. Maybe they don't understand the technical parts, but they're better at other things. It's just the goal is to try to match the person with certain types of stories. So if you have a non-technical person and you ask them to write articles about highly technical topics,
Mm.
then they might have issues with that.
I see. Okay. So part of your job, I think, or your role, you have to read a lot, right? Uh,
Yes.
what do you normally read? Like news articles, technical reports, or what's your routine reading?
So
Books?
I don't actually have time to read anything outside. I mean, I read all day to get this information to convey it to other people. So
Yeah.
I don't read almost anything outside of that. Except now I started reading Harry Potter with my daughter. So that's the most I've read in
Okay.
all my life outside of. Uh,
Okay. Okay. Uh, okay. Let's talk about Security Week and what they do. So you said the Security Week they arrange an ICS conference, right? In the
yes,
US. What do you
yes.
normally do in this conference? Do you invite speakers or do you do courses or what do you do?
Yes, so the ICS Cybersecurity Conference i- is dedicated to operators, control system, security professionals, and it provides valuable resources for each of these categories.
Mm.
So we have workshops and training labs for people, even introductory courses that for people working in industrial environments who want to learn about security.
Mm.
So they might not know a lot, and we have introductory courses. So also more advanced training labs for people
Wow.
who know a few things about cybersecurity but want to perfect certain skills. And we also have informative talks, and we bring a lot of OT security vendors there because a lot of people come there to find the right products for their needs. And that's what I've noticed in terms of trends because you mentioned so companies are investing more and more in OT security. They've realized that it's such an important part of running a business or an organization. For example, I was talking to the representative of a company in a highly regulated sector. And I was talking with him at the ICS Cybersecurity Conference, and they were there to find products. And
Okay.
he told me that he was there to spend money. So he was ready to sign contracts worth $1 million a year. So yearly contracts of $1 million. He said, we're ready to invest. We invest a few $1 million in cybersecurity every year. But if we get hacked, the cost to our organization for incident response and fines, because they were in a highly regulated sector, that would add up to $300 million. So we'd rather spend $3 or $4 million a year on cybersecurity than get hacked and then have to spend 300 million on incident response and fines, and that doesn't include damage to reputation. That's just the monetary damage, what you can clearly quantify.
Wow. Yeah, and that's makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, so that's the one of the advantages of being a journalist that you can connect with so many different
Yes.
people, different styles, different
Yeah.
background.
Sometimes you don't need to tell people that you're a journalist if you want to get the good stuff, because if you tell them
Ah,
that you're a journalist, they might get scared and not tell you anything.
mm,
But if it's in off the record discussions at the conference, in off the record discussions, you can get a lot of interesting information that you can't write about, but it helps you gain context about
mm,
the industry. So it improves your writing and understanding of the industry, even if you can't write about
mm.
certain things that you hear.
Okay. So sometimes you don't introduce yourself as a journalist. based
Yes.
on the situation.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
to be clever about it, huh?
Yeah.
Because sometimes journalists, to me, they are like detectives.
Yes.
Sometimes I view them sometimes like detectives.
Yes.
They have to act smart to pull out the information and
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
wise
In my
about it.
first conference,
Yeah.
I did when I attended my first conference as a journalist. I was working as a journalist for 8 months, I think. I went to a conference and there were a few iPhone hackers there. It was a general security conference, and we had a chat. They didn't. I told them I was a journalist, but I didn't specifically tell them I would. Hey, I would write about everything you say. So we had scheduled a chat in a. So they knew I was a journalist, and they knew that they were talking to journalists, but they weren't experienced in talking to journalists. So we had a friendly chat, but it was all recorded. When that chat finished, I started publishing. I wrote 10 articles based on that chat. They gave me all this juicy information. And the next day they were pissed with me that I had written about everything. They were, I didn't mean that. Well, you were on the record. So unless you mentioned that this is off the record, it was things like the price of iPhone exploits and things like that. They
Wow.
had never told anyone about how much they thought their exploits were worth. And in a friendly conversation, they gave up that information.
And you
I
advertised.
took I
You're
took
all over.
advantage of that. It was,
Wow. So that's
but
why.
then of
Yeah.
course those guys avoided me, so I met up with them at other conferences. So the next time they knew not to, they brought a PR person with them just to shut them up in case they start. So
Wow. I was gonna ask you that. Do governments sometimes tell you stuff? Government or they don't? Uh,
yeah, with governments it's more difficult to get
hmm.
valuable information.
They don't cooperate with you.
Yeah, yeah. So we have sometimes we cover a lot from CISA, from the Cybersecurity Agency in the United States.
Yeah.
So we sometimes exchange emails with them and ask for clarifications on certain points, or sometimes I point out that there's a mistake in their advisory
Mhm.
because some of their advisories are inaccurate. So I sometimes point out that there might be something wrong with it. But they don't always respond. So sometimes they do respond, sometimes they don't.
Do you think there is a room for another cybersecurity magazine or publication at the moment, or it's too much? And
Yeah, there are a lot now.
do you
Many
think
of
there is a
them
room?
have.
There is a room for somebody who wants to start, or
I think it would be difficult
Hmm.
to organically create a big audience right now. So
Hmm.
it has taken us several years to to
Hmm.
gain the audience that we have now, the millions of readers that we have now. So this has been a long process where you have to be consistent and persistent, and it takes a lot of patience and dedication. Now, a lot of publications actually go out of business, or they're not they're
Hmm.
not very successful as far as I'm seeing.
Yeah. You said you get sometimes threats from lawsuits and stuff. Have you received any threats from APTs or hackers? Because sometimes you write about them.
Yeah, no, 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 no.
They don't
The
threaten
state
you?
sponsored no, the state sponsored hackers. I
Yeah.
think they have better things to do, and it's just their job, so they don't care.
Yeah.
And the cyber criminals,
So-
there was a time when I was writing more about cyber criminals, and
Mm.
they did threaten me with different things. Especially there was a time 10 years ago or more when the
Mm.
Russian cyber criminals were trying to get me to write certain things.
Okay.
So and they were threatening me, and uh, I was a beginner at that point. I didn't know how to handle those situations, so it was a bit stressful at the time.
Yeah.
you see a hacker whose name is all over the media telling you, hey, you should write about this or that. And
Oh, okay. Did they email you or what? Social media, or how did they talk to you?
I don't even remember. I don't know
Okay.
what tools we were using at the time. I don't remember what messaging apps there were at the time.
Okay. So, I mean, because sometimes you write about sensitive topics and critical topics.
Yes.
I'm sure your type of job, sometimes you get stories like that, like what you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah, well, as you mentioned with the legal implications,
Hmm.
the biggest issue is when covering data leaks. So hackers post on a forum 5 gigabytes of data stolen from a company that they claim has been stolen from a company.
Okay.
So what do? Do you go there and download the 5 gigabytes and start going through the data to see
It's,
if what the hackers are saying is true?
I
So
see.
this is kind of a
Hmm.
legal problem that could, because you could stumble upon some information that you really shouldn't see in that big
Hmm.
data leak. You could come across intellectual property or some classified information that you shouldn't see. So for me, I found that the middle ground is in
Okay.
some in many cases can be to just look at the look at what the hackers are publishing as samples. They
I see.
often publish a few records of personal information and a couple of screenshots to show that they got
Hmm.
passports and stuff like that. So I often just look at that information to see if, and you can often tell from just that if the information does come from a company or if it's taken from somewhere else or just fabricated and they're just trying to falsely claim that they hacked a big company.
Have you ever needed the assistance of technical people to prove like a story like what you mentioned? Have you ever needed experts to cooperate with you or to confirm a story
Most
or?
cases, we rely on the targeted vendor also. So
Hmm.
we give them a chance to issue a statement and we hope that they usually downplay the impact of an incident.
Hmm.
But we often rely on them to be honest. And many, especially technical companies, are usually honest about the impact, what data has been taken, whether their processes have been disrupted by an incident. You can, in some cases, trust the vendor. But there are some cases where someone working in threat intelligence, for example, can shed light on exactly what's going on. Not necessarily to analyze the data, or they can't tell you exactly what's going on in a breach, but they can tell you about the reputation of the hacker, for example,
Oh, okay.
whether they're known for making up hacks or known for exaggerating
Oh, okay.
their claims.
So there is a profile for hackers uh, that they know or and rank.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Especially cyber criminals. So
Hmm.
we don't know much about individual APTs, I mean, state-sponsored hackers.
Hmm.
We sometimes see their names because the governments announce sanctions against them. So
Hmm.
we see their names, but they're not as vocal and not. They try to keep a low profile personally compared
Hmm.
to cyber criminals who are trying to attract attention and gain notoriety to sell the data they sell, for example.
Do you have to go to the dark web sometimes as part of your job, or you don't have to?
Sometimes, but it's not very common. It's rare actually. As I mentioned, it's better. I prefer to rely on threat intelligence companies and reputable researchers who do this for a living. And I,
Yeah.
throughout the years, I've made many contacts. So I know who to reach out to, and they know to reach out to me if they find something interesting.
Interesting. So I think journalists, cybersecurity journalists, I think they have more overview of what's going on in cybersecurity than sometimes more than the technical people. Because I don't follow the news as much as you, and I just dedicate a day or two a week just to follow up. But you guys, you do it every day, maybe every 2 hour.
Yes. Yes, because
So
it's our job for people like you. You have a different job and different
yeah.
things to worry about most of the time than to keep up with the information.
So from your experience now, how do you describe the cybersecurity world or the hacking world? Now you've been covering it, you've been reading about it, you've been threatened. You know the cyber criminals sometimes, or you know people who know them. What do you think of the overall cybersecurity? Do you think it's a hype? Because some people say they accuse vendors that they are making up stories to scare the customers to buy their products and services. So from your perspective.
Yeah, so some vendors do that. So it's true that some vendors exaggerate things just
Mhm.
to sell their products, and
Mhm.
but the problem is real. I sometimes it may seem that I exaggerate with the impact in my articles. Maybe
Yeah.
my articles sound, but as I mentioned, that's the way you raise awareness.
Mhm.
So if we don't write about anything, if we stop writing about ransomware attacks, for example, because we don't want to advertise these groups. Because obviously, ransomware groups, for example, they use the press to gain notoriety, people will fear them.
Mhm.
So, what if we stop writing about ransomware attacks just so we don't promote their activities? That doesn't mean ransomware goes away. That doesn't mean there will be no more attacks.
Yeah.
Companies will maybe they don't see it in the news, they start uh, focusing less on cybersecurity and they will get hacked more. It's just
Yeah.
some companies and some people do exaggerate it, but
Mhm.
it's real. So
Real.
we see all these high-profile government intrusions
Mhm.
because many stories, even hackers exaggerate their claims sometimes. But then we see stories where important critical government networks get hacked and
Mhm.
the foreign threat actor steals highly valuable data or spies on important people in that country. So that's a reality. That's not exaggerated.
So where do you see the OT cybersecurity going from your experience? Do you think companies are getting better at securing their stuff, or do you think the hackers are becoming better from both defensive and offensive perspective? What do you think?
Companies are definitely have gotten better,
Mm.
but this will always be a cat and mouse game. So
Cat and mouse.
as companies find ways to protect their systems, attackers will find way to bypass those protections. I don't think there's a silver bullet right now. On the other hand, in the OT space, there's still a lot of room for growth. So we have big companies with a lot of resources that are heavily investing in ICS and OT security. On the other hand, we also have smaller companies. You can see examples with the hacktivist attacks. We often see hacktivists making claims about hacking HMIs and just random internet connected ICS systems that are not protected by even a password. So you see all these companies where they can easily gain access to an HMI and change settings. So there are these companies that they may not invest absolutely anything in security. You see them not even the basic level, not even making sure that you don't have internet exposed systems that don't have at least the password to protect them. So there's currently this disconnect between the bigger players, and probably not even all the big players still care about security for OT and ICS. But it's increasing, and market projections show that ICS security will continue to increase for at least a decade.
So, do you follow the OT security only in Europe and America, or do you follow it everywhere in the world? So, how I'm talking about the players and in the OT cybersecurity. Do you follow, for example, OT cybersecurity in the Middle East or Asia?
Not as much, but anything that comes our way. So if we get approached, we don't ignore it just because it's from the. We like to think of ourselves like a global company,
Mm.
but much of our audience is in the West, North America and Europe. So sometimes the focus is there, but we don't ignore anything because what currently affects organizations in Asia, maybe only in Asia, it might affect organizations around the world in a month from now or a year from now. So attacks that we see today in North America could at any point move to any other part of the world. So if we believe that it could be a global trend, then it doesn't matter where it happens. If it has a global impact, then it's noteworthy.
Yeah, true. It's the world is getting more interconnected, and
Exactly.
you get sometimes a domino effect, like you said,
Exactly.
Asia to America and vice versa.
Yes. Yes.
It's been really pleasure, and I don't want to take so much of your time. Thanks for sharing your information and your journalism journey. Uh,
Thank you
I
for
really find,
inviting me.
yeah, I really find Security Week a valuable resource for me personally.
Thank you.
I'm sure for others, especially your articles. Um, so, anything you would like to share before we leave, Edward?
No, I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, cool, cool. So, you mostly work remotely all the time.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
I do go to the United States sometimes, especially for our ICS conferences.
Yeah,
I like it so much. So that's where you create new contacts and get new information.
yeah,
Sometimes good to connect with people in person
yeah.
rather than just through emails.
Yeah, I mean, I was interested to interview you and hear the opinion of journalists as they cover a wide area of information about this domain. I wanted to learn from what the journalists think about OT cybersecurity. This could be valuable for the specialist because we work, we all as a team, complement
Yes,
each
yeah,
other,
of course, of
complement each
course.
other. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
even if there's competition between companies, overall, the industry should stick together and collaborate
Yeah.
for the overall good.
Yes, especially the OT security community is much, much smaller than the,
Yes,
so we should cooperate more.
yes, exactly.
Thank you, Eduard Kovacs. Thank you very much. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, sure, my pleasure. And we'll see you later on LinkedIn or wherever. Uh, Thank you. Take care. Thank you very much, guys. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Take care.